It's great to see everybody here considering what last night was like. My name is Sheila DeCourcy and I'm here to interview Doc and Cathal about their retrospective and on the occasion of them getting the Mercami Award. Congratulations, I think they deserve. So what I thought we'd do is, this is basically a conversation. We're going to look at a number of shorts that they have made or their company has made and just talk to them about the work, starting the present, going back to the past, and there'll be time for questions and answers. So please, hold on to your questions, or if you've got anything burning you need to say, just put your hand up. There will be a prize for the first 6 questions, I'm told, particularly if they're good ones. They'll be judging. So just to give you a bit of context, Brandbag was founded in 1994 by Cathal and Dara and in Dublin. They dropped out of college, borrowed 2,000 quid, set up the company. Their first series was Peg, was for RTE, and it was produced with hand-painted cells and shot on 35mm film. Now, almost 24 years later, Brandbag have studio locations in Dublin, Toronto, Manchester, and an office in LA. They employ over 600 people across all of the places and have been responsible for hits such as which we know, Doc McStuffins, Octonauts, Olivia, Peter Rabbit, Nottingham Toyland, and the list goes on. And along the way, they've earned numerous awards, including 14 daytime Emmys in the last week. Is that nominations? Yes, which is amazing. And 2 Oscar nominations. And so, but I'd say have you ever counted the number of nominations and awards that Brandbag?
I haven't. Colin counts them. Yeah.
Who's got the one word Academy Award?
And that's for you, rather than Colin, you're Managing Director of Brandbag Films and Chief Operating Officer of 9 Story Group, and you're Creative Director of Brandbag Films across all of the different areas. And the first thing, in order for an introduction, what I just thought would be really good is, Colin, could you describe Dara for everyone?
So Dara is the Creative Director?
Person. You've worked together for 24 years. So it's actually, what do you think of him? Seriously, what are his good qualities?
You didn't warn us about this question.
What is good qualities, bad qualities, what you like and what you don't like? And you get your chance.
Well, I said it yesterday, we're like the Mr. and Mrs. of Irish animation, 24 years together, plus probably about 3 years in college that we would have known each other. So, so I feel well versed to probably describe Dara. Dara is very, very creative. He's very personable. He's he gets on well with everybody. What would I say? I suppose we're so different. We're like yin and yang in work.
Just like Gillian Higgins, I think, described it well. She said, between the two of us, we're one full person. It's like I always say, if it was just me, the company would have gone out of business a long time ago because I'm too soft. And if it was just Cathal, there'd be nobody working for us because he's too hard. So it's between the two of us, we kind of make a fully rounded human.
And what would you think are Cathal's strengths?
He's got a brass neck, it's like when we first started, I was afraid to even answer the phone. I was so shy. Cathal was famous for jumping over a table and sending pints flying just to shake hands with Michael D. Higgins, so he was always the one that got out there and got the work in, and then I was more just in the studio. So I think that's great with Cathal. Is there any young people in the audience? I remember Andy Smith used to always go to you because he said he was too soft in business. He said, Cathal, I need some bastard lessons. That's where Cathal had that toughness that you need.
And does he have a nice side?
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, we're in business 24 years. I expect to see it soon, It's no, he doesn't. It's like we actually. I think we make each other laugh a lot, but it's funny these days. It's only at events like this we actually get to hang out together.
Yeah.
Because in work we rarely see each other these days. Yeah. We're just always doing different things, and Cathal's away quite a lot. And so I think we're actually having more fun now in a way, especially at events like this where we can just hang out and have a laugh.
And has it been worth it? You put in a lot of work for it. So you say you're now hanging out after 24 years of kind of moving alongside one another. You're now actually getting time to hang out. Have the 24 years been worth it?
God, yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But it's but there are, you know, we did. I remember when we were young, it's that we never got to travel. Like, you know, the way people used to take a year off and go
Yeah.
around, and we never got to do any of that. We were sort of straight out.
But there are pictures of you intense. Both
Yeah,
of you intense.
I don't know. You go down to Galway. Look, like now it's like he's travelling a bit too much now.
Yeah.
Like he's up, but
But you've now got the opportunity to do that. Is that to travel and stuff like that?
yeah, but it's still very much around work though,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
Like you get to go to Miami and LA and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. And
yeah.
it's cool, but it is a lot of work.
And when you started out, did you have any sense, like, did you have a name? I mean, because you're a really interesting panel. Anytime I've talked to you, like, you're very good at strategy. Isn't like you think about things in big picture and small picture and long term and think very carefully. And, you know, you both describe each other, I think, quite well, but insofar as I know you. But I'm just curious, when you started out and you had Voyager 2000 Quid and whatever, were you thinking we were going for world domination? Or were you thinking just like to make animation? What were you thinking at that time?
It's kind of funny because, you know, we talk about animation, it's the alchemy of making commerce from art. Like, how do you make money out of art? It's impossible, like, it's very, very hard. And my old man was a guard, and all my family were guards or prison officers. Like, so I was like completely the black sheep. So I do remember that kind of driving force, like, how do I do something in animation that's as steady and as sensible as a guard with a pension, you know? So I was always determined to have this kind of like...
Colin was so funny. I remember one time we were locking up the studio on Gardner Street, and the buzzer goes, and it's like Colin going, yeah, don't hang on, just the guy acting suspicious. Oh no, he's Gardner, it was his card. Don't worry, it's him. We used to call him Garda Gaffney. He'd always be like, suspicious. He actually says vehicle. You know, it's I think there was a huge moment in brown bag history when I think there was a cut-off age for the guards, and he reached it, and he didn't apply. I mean, that was a big deal.
That was actually it was the day that we signed the contract for PEG. I stood outside the Temple Bar pub and I deliberated about whether I would go right and go up to Fitzgibbon Street and fill in the form to become a guard, or turn left and go to RT and sign the contract for PEG. And it was about 15 minutes and I was walking up and down. And,
like a guard.
Yeah. But like, it was very close, it actually was close, and I said, no, feck it, I'll go to RT, and then that was the end of that.
So that was a pretty, you said that both of your mothers or parents signed off on your own. That's a pretty big step from your family, if they'd all been guards. I mean, there's quite a difference between being a guard and making PEG, you know. Was it like that's very courageous on their part? They were very supportive, were they?
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think they were hoping it was a phase, though. You know, I don't think they saw it as a career. Like, there was no.
I mean, I can understand that because
Yeah, because we met. It was down outside Bank of Ireland. The two mammies met each other and went in and signed guarantor on their own. So.
And at that stage, it wasn't, did you set out at that stage, I mean, we will go through the later years and how milestones were set up, but you didn't have this idea that in 25 years I want to be, you know, living in an attached house with 25 children, or whatever, you worked at that, or were you just kind of taking each stage as it comes?
We used to always write stuff down, you know, we always knew that, I mean, there was no point in doing something like that until you got to the first leg of the ladder. Yeah. So we always knew what we wanted to do, and I think the first thing we wanted to do was get paid. That took about 10 years, but there's a lot of poverty at the start. There was a lot of you know, not getting paid from ad agencies, not being able to pay the staff, all of that stuff.
We used to sleep in the office a lot on that rolled up carpet. Remember that?
Yes, yeah. We used to
stay warm.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't afford to get a taxi home, so you just stay in town. We were paying rent to the office, and we crashed there a lot.
You look at the smell of old carpet and painting cells the next day. Like,
because so much of it, nowadays when you talk about the sort of theory, people say, you know, set goals. Where will we be in 5 years' time? Where will we be in 10 years' time?
Yeah, well, we did do that. You used to draw pictures of each other where we'd be in 10 years' time. And you used to have me, my girlfriend, my script, and yeah, you still gave me long hair then. That was that didn't last as long. No, but we did do that. And that was kind of your idea. It was always to, where do you want to be? Write stuff down.
Yeah.
And we did write stuff. Like, we wrote down get nominated for an Oscar. And it just, I think when you write stuff down, it just becomes more real. Or at least, and then you show it to each other.
Yeah.
And then
you're in trouble.
Then you are. You're kind of committed to something then. You know?
But you can't really do a business plan without knowing a personal plan. Like there's no point in saying, oh, we want to conquer the world, unless you know personally that's the right thing for you. So that's why we used to always talk about where we want to be personally in our lives.
Yeah.
So.
Can we have a look at this first at your showreel, just to get a sense of stuff? Can we have a look at the It is amazing to have reached that position in 24 years, to be responsible for that. Can I just talk a bit about the 9-Story media acquisition? So in 2014, and then we go back to the beginning, 15, was it 2015? What does it mean to be acquired? Like, what does being acquired mean, and how did it come about?
We'd kind of come to a point with the business, like in the 20-odd years, every 3 years we've had a different company. So it's like we were in an entirely different business every 3 years. And then we were, as soon as things begin to...
So that's kind of a different focus, or different technical focus.
Yeah, so things change. It's like we have a totally different company. It's just called Brown Bag the whole time. And I knew that we needed to get into distribution. And I knew that the market was changing, and we had ambition to kind of grow the business. So we were going to get private equity money into the business. And we'd gone around a whole bunch of, because we wanted to build our own distribution business. We want to take it to the next stage, have a bigger challenge, a bigger sandpit to play in. And we were entertaining offers from various different private equity funds to really accelerate the business to the next stage. And then the opportunity came from 9-Story, and they said, hey, what if we bought you? And I was like, stop, what if we bought you? And, we were two similar sized companies, and then I realized, as I looked into it then, and we had a long discussion with it, that they had all the distribution business and we had all the production business, and what we were good at, they weren't very good at, what they weren't very good at, we were great at. So it was like two Lego bricks kind of stuck together. So we really liked the team, and then we kind of got involved. So it was more like a merger than an acquisition, but somebody has to be in charge. And at that point it was great. We were, I suppose, cash poor but asset rich. And it made sense for us at the time. At that kind of time.
Paul went to Stanford, by the way. I still don't understand a lot of the stuff he says. But it works. Definitely works.
So what does it mean to be acquired yet? So nothing. You go back to your desk. You're at your desk doing the exact same job, except you don't own your desk. It's like, so it's just been I've never been busier since the acquisition. Yeah. But
and in terms of day to day, it has changed for you, and it hasn't changed.
No, I mean it has changed. I think it's changed in a lot of positive ways. Like this. It's certainly for me, because I was able to just go back and focus on creative, and all I do now is work with directors. And before, like when it's your own company, you'd be involved in HR and management and finance and all of that stuff. I mean, Cahill still is a lot, but now he's involved across Toronto and Manchester and Dublin as well. So he's made himself much busier, and I'm just become a flaky artist.
And how did it come about? Did you when you say you were looking for private equity? I'm just curious. How does that? Is that a lot of networking? Is it a lot? Do you make approaches? Do you meet people in pubs for a pint and sort of go, a spare few million, or I'm just curious how you work.
The way private equity works is it's easy to get private equity if you've got a business, I suppose, that's profitable. Yeah. But whatever money they put in, they want 3 times that within 4 years. So you got to go to them with a fairly ambitious plan to say, listen, we're going to create the next Doc McStuffins, and we're going to own it. And
so is there an intermediary, or is it like? Did you meet the heads of 9-Story Media, or are there intermediaries who are kind of introducing? Just curious.
We had set up. We had a board of directors, and Neil Court was on our board, and he was also on the board of a New York private equity firm, and that firm invested in 9-Story. So I had to ask Neil to step down off our board. And then he approached us then about 6 months later and said, hey, what if we bought you? So.
And was it very hard to keep, presumably you had quite a long period of negotiation where your team didn't know, and I mean, I know you're all very close. So was it a hard period
Yeah,
of
well,
time.
it was, like, I wasn't involved in it at all. It was Cahill and Louise Cornally, our head of finance,
Yeah.
who basically, it took about a year nearly,
Took a
of
year.
them going, and him having to go to like New York for 2 days and stuff like that. Like, it was
Yeah.
mad stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what we had a really good board of directors, and they said, be careful when somebody tries to acquire you. What often happens is you take your eye off the ball, and the company can go down because you're so focused on this thing.
In that period.
So Cahill focused on that, and then the rest of us just got on with the business.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get involved in it because it would have been too distracting.
Yeah.
I think people thought Louise and myself were having an affair because for about a year we were locked in an office and sneaking off to New York for 2 days and back, and it was like, and we couldn't tell anyone. And actually it's funny, when we did the deal then, it was like that anti-climax because for a year you were working into this with all the contracts and all that stuff, and then boom, it's over, and it's like, what do we do now? Like, I had to really, oh my
And
God.
did you holiday? Or did you, was it straight into it?
I think I got straight into
Straight
it.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, it's huge. I mean, it was terrific. And I remember seeing the pictures at the time, you know, when you told the team you shared some assets, didn't you, with the people got
Yeah,
financial.
Yeah,
you know,
became
people
share
were-
options to the
Yeah,
staff, so
yeah.
everybody in the company
was involved on some level in the you know, when it was announced. You know,
Yeah.
But again, one of the really important things the board said to us was, statistically, after a company is acquired, the bosses get fired. And it's 100 days or something like
Yeah.
that. But within
So it
100
lasted
days.
over 100 days.
Yeah. No, so that's what they said. They said, look, make sure whatever it is, it's worth it, that if you're gone and you have to walk away within 100 days, that you're okay. And that was really good advice.
And we've ended up rebranding their production arm
Yeah.
as Brownback Films in Toronto. So they've adapted all our kind of practices. So it's kind of like being a 2x2.
So you love it. You love it. It was
Yeah.
really good and really positive for the company and really,
Yeah.
you know, like has taken Brownback globally.
Yeah.
Really. And yeah, you know, that's, well, we have a look then at one of your early films. So we've got The Last Elk.
Oh yeah,
No,
and
going
this,
right back.
The Last Elk is actually directed by Al Shannon, who's
Yeah.
from Jam.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was...
And it's directed by Al and Nora Toomey from Breadwinner. It was her first job out of
Yeah.
college, and she did all the assistant animation and that.
Mark was one of the producers. I think
Mark
Cumberton, Gary O'Neill
Yeah.
was involved. Darren.
Gary O'Neill actually played Uilleann pipes on it as well.
Yeah, no, it was quite interesting when you look at it because it actually was like when you talk about the collaboration, and you spoke about it last night, you know, and the community, which is something I've always been really aware of, is the community within animation in Ireland and how supportive you are. And actually, it was like a who's who of animation meeting the credits.
Oh yeah,
In
and
the
even,
last
even
episode.
Darren,
Yeah.
Darren Henley
Yeah.
did the music on it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And this was different because we actually did the music first,
Yeah.
and then Al had to literally animate every little footstep to the music. And the whole thing about the elk was meant to be, each elk is represented by a musical instrument. So the music starts with piano, and the music starts layering up, and then as they die off, it goes down again. Until it was, yeah, but that we did it arse ways. You wouldn't do that now, you'd score it afterwards.
Was it part of the learning process? I mean, would you say that this was something like a stage in
Oh yeah. So this is the first time we ever used computer animation as well in this.
Yeah, so this is 1997 when we made this, and that was, we had just got the first Animal in Ireland, which is a digital ink and paint software, and like that, I think at the time that cost about £30,000, and you could probably buy an app on your phone, on your iPhone now for like €1 that does the same thing. Like, but it was quite. I mean, when you look at it now, like the technology was probably cutting edge at the time. But yeah, it's very primitive, you know. Now, but I think it still
it stands
stands
up.
up. And what we did actually last year was we did when you see the elk, we made a statue out of it. We got one of the lads to model it up in CGI, and then we got it printed out on a 3D printer, and then we got it dipped into bronze and got a series of 9 elks made. So, because the design is amazing, like in fairness to Al, like he's quite a talent with the design. It's beautiful. You know.
Although people kept asking me, why didn't I have a face? Yeah. Haunts you to this day.
That's right.
The other day, something, you know, as I say, when I was looking at the credit list, I was really struck by the, you know, by the names, you know, people who are still working with the animation sector. What is the key to holding on to staff, to managing staff and holding up staff. Because the context for me is that having watched your studio and other studios where the work is so focused and people have to produce a certain amount of material within a day. Like, this is not, you don't wander around the place. People are really focused. I mean, what's the key thing, do you think, in terms of keeping staff engaged and focused and working for you rather than going to somebody else?
I think it's just making them feel as involved as you can, and training is great, and making sure people have a career path and they can keep growing.
Yeah.
That's hugely important. I mean, we have people here in the studio, people like Norton who joined us 6.5 years ago, and he's trained so many of our directors now in the studio. And people who were animators are now directing shows for Nickelodeon because they've been allowed to grow. I think that's huge.
Yeah, I think giving people a purpose, like, it's not just enough to have a job anymore, it's not a purpose, like, what are you actually doing, where are you going?
And obviously the 9-story, like the expansion over since 2015, has allowed a lot more of that. I mean, it's given a lot more opportunities for people working within Banbag.
Well, as anyone knows, running an animation studio, the problem at the moment is trying to find people. And there's so much work out there, and Ireland it's kind of become the go-to destination for a lot of people worldwide, and it's really just hard to find people these days, which is a good complaint.
And is there a sense of, one of the things that the whole thing about a community, animation community, do you sense that among students nowadays? Are they still, like, are the colleges still, are people still collaborating really well?
The studios?
No, the students.
Oh, the students.
I'm just thinking about the younger generation.
I don't know.
I suppose I'm not as close to that as I would have been, but there certainly seems to be so many students now. There's over 10 animation colleges or courses now, which is incredible. I think it used to be only 2. And that's all I know.
And the training. Give up your old sins. I don't know, it was shown in the earlier thing, so I thought we would show it again. So.
Yeah.
Is that okay with everybody? It's just the show in Christmas and but tell us about going to the Oscars. That was the first. I mean, that must have been quite a...
That's funny. I was talking to Paul Young last night, and it's funny, like, he's just been through his third. Yeah, no, what I said, please tell me it doesn't get tired. And he's like, no, it's still great. So that's good. I mean, it is. They're like a kid in the sweet shop. It's just good crack.
Yeah.
But back then, we were so poor. Like, we had no money back. Even getting the flights over to LA was a big deal for us. So it's kind of like winning the lotto with no cash,
Yeah.
Like everyone was so...
Lions tea sponsors. They gave us the money to go to the Oscars.
Did it?
Yeah. Colin Mate was a marketing guy in there.
And what did you have to do for them?
I drink tea for a week.
And then the second time was with Granny O'Brien.
Yeah, it's funny, I think we were more focused the second time, and we kind of knew what was expected of you when you go over.
Yeah.
But again, we made tons of mistakes along the way. After Granny O'Brien, we opened an office in LA, and it's open probably for 3 years, and that just was a pit. Just nothing came out of it really, except loads of wasted time.
Yeah.
So, but you kind of learn as you go, We still have a writers' room in LA now but it's doing something. We know what it's about, but you can waste a lot of time with all that Hollywood stuff.
So with the last Elk and then Give Up Your Old Sins, was that you were talking about 3-year cycles? What did Give Up Your Old Sins represent a different stage in the development of the company?
Well, I mean, you always try and reinvent the business when you're at the top of the previous curve.
Yeah.
So we were kind of at the end of that curve, like with 2D animation. We moved into 3D pretty much straight afterwards. It was always like, as soon as things are going really well, that's when you start feeling like cracking ice, so always paranoid about things when they start to go well, because you never know what's around the corner, so endlessly paranoid.
And during those years, you were doing some pretty grim work as well, weren't you? Like ads and stuff. And you mentioned the CD-ROM.
Oh no, Al was saying that last night, But that was all cool stuff. I got to go to Russia a few times. Yeah. Like when we were doing these CD-ROM games that were just mad, and this was back in 95 or 96. Okay. So there was the Wild West then. We needed bodyguards and everything going around Russia. And but it was really interesting, It was, and it's one of those things. You look back and it seemed like it took us forever, and you had to do all this really, really grim work.
Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of it, it's getting paid to draw pictures and make animation. It was still fun.
Yeah, yeah. And how about the advertising? How long did you do that for? You did a lot of advertising work.
I think we got out of advertising around, what was it, 2005? Was it?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Was that a conscious decision to?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, you've done that.
It was half our turnover at the time, so we knew that, doing advertising and doing long form, we wanted to do long form. We wanted to get into telling stories, and we wanted to do TV animation, long form TV animation, and advertising was brain damage. It was absolutely the most talentless people who didn't pay you worked in advertising. It was really soul destroying creatively, and and I think there was a good. You were at that meeting with Nicky, the director of Granny O'Grim, and he went in with a client, and he was pitching this limited colour palette on a job, and then the client said, "I don't want the limited colour palette, I want all the colours." And it was like, oh God. So it was very kind of hard to work with people like that, particularly in Ireland, because we didn't have enough quality jobs, and anytime an agency would get a good budget, they would go straight over to London. So we were always down the bottom of the food chain in advertising. But it was still half our turnover, and making that decision.
And it was also a good breeding ground. Like it helped develop, like Nicky as a director, Brona O'Hanlon as a director. So you were able to take risks. There were short jobs. You were able to try different styles. So it was useful, but it just became a distraction then after.
Yeah. And then, so this around the next one we're going to have a look at is Ding Dong Denny's History of Ireland, which you were saying is the first 3D, or was it CGI?
Well, it was just really where we were
3D.
pushing the 3D.
It's like that was 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
Change over time.
Yeah, that was the last thing I directed at that time.
Wow.
So I was absolutely bored directing. I found it really much more interested in getting things done rather than kind of fussing around. Oh, come on, just get it done. I was like,
Colin would start directing stuff and then say, "Here, you finish that." He would get bored.
Attention span. So that was the last thing that we did. So we teamed up with Paul Woodfull, the comedian, and so we worked on that. So it was a bit of a fun job. It was kind of like, it's always nice to do shorts, and I think that was the.
And it was also the beginning of another new period, a phase in terms of, because you just given up advertising.
Yeah.
Or you were kind of in that turnover and wanted to go to longer form, isn't it?
Well, and there was the big push to get into 3D.
3D,
Just sort of test what we could do.
Yeah, but we have a look at it.
It looks 4:3. It's obviously supposed to be 16:9.
Often developing the story, was it?
Yeah, well, I think it was more, there was just this narration by Paul, and I was trying to put a structure around us, and bringing in the tourist in a pub and sitting them down and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But no, it was mostly Paul's.
And tell me something, that was the framework, a few, the shorts. Are shorts very important in the development of a team, or in terms of your whole brown bag?
Yeah, because they give somebody a chance to just flex a different muscle, and it's like a release valve. Like you're working on projects for years and years, and with other people's money, and you get a lot of notes and a lot of from broadcasters and stuff. So things like that, you're just doing it for yourself, and you're just doing it because even Give Up Your Old Sins and Granny O'Grim were just basically for ourselves. They weren't they weren't something that we were getting notes from anybody on.
Yeah.
So it's always fun to do that.
Do you miss Cahill? Would you like to be going back to directing something like
No,
that?
definitely not.
No.
No, it's like my role now is more facilitating that, and that's what I get great pleasure out of.
Yeah.
I find the granular detail very boring now. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't have any interest in it or patience for it. So
I know, because it must be quite interesting looking back at that work and thinking like you're so very closely involved in whereas you're quite facilitating it.
Yeah. So no, it's very happy not to be doing it anymore. I think I'm kind of like in this weird kind of zone, like all the animation people that I know all think I'm a businessman, and all the business people I know and on the boards and all these different things, they all think I'm this crazy artist. So I'm kind of stuck in the middle somewhere, and I haven't quite found, but no, definitely kind of much more in the business side I find much more enjoying.
The next one that we had, so that was 3D, and is there anything in particular in terms of the development of the company? Did that seem to because you guys selected that as one of the shorts? I'm just wondering, is there anything in particular?
No, again, it's just a lot of tech, like that's when we do shorts, it'd be to try out something technical,
Yeah,
to try out a new kind of pipeline,
Yeah.
like it'd be an artistic reason, but also a technical reason for doing it.
yeah.
So we learned a lot on that we could then bring into TV shows, like
Yeah.
hair systems and lighting and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And you also learn a lot of what not to do.
Yeah.
So that's what we
Just realised that we're showing her in a church and there's a lot of, a lot of stuff working. All the light will come through the window now.
It's Church of Ireland.
Oh, it's okay.
Bird food is the next short. We have a look at it. I mean, it's lovely.
Yeah.
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 Is that anything you just
I think, again, it's Scott saying facilitating other artists. Bird Food
Yeah.
was just by Richie Keane, one of our, he was a previous artist at the time, and it was just letting other people have a go
Yeah.
at directing and doing shorts. And again, there's no dialogue in this, it was just pure comedy and acting.
Have you kept many people? Like Darren is somebody who's worked with you for a very long time.
Darren Hendon.
And
Well, and he also works with Darren works with, you see, Darren used to be in a band with Al Shannon, that's how we knew Darren. And the Aloysius
What was-
Fontaines. Al was the lead singer.
okay, good.
So, and that's what we knew, like, I think, it's like, you know, anybody, you hear about them working with the same people
Yeah.
all the time, it's because you get a shorthand,
Yeah.
you get, like, you enjoy their company, you like working with them, and that's why you tend to,
And are there many people who've been with you? I mean, I suppose I was curious. Are there many people that, if you're going back to the 90s and seeing that list and stuff, are there many people that you've worked with for a long time? Or
Yeah,
just stayed with you?
yeah, the people like Jean, Nicky, Phelan, Bruno, Hanlon, they
Yeah.
came straight out of school, a lot of them have been with us like 15 years
Wow.
or more, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, and even I was saying earlier, like Norton and Dan, the two
Yeah.
guys there,
Yeah.
like Norton's from the States, Dan is from Canada, they
Yeah.
were just like 6.5 years, seven
Yeah.
7.5 years, you know, so.
First 30 are the hardest.
I know because it builds up a very good core team, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Let's have a look at bird food. Also, you're able to get away with things in animation that you wouldn't be able to in live action.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I mean, if that was done in live action, there'd be war. Has anybody got any questions? Just anything anybody would like to ask? Yeah. Do you want to say who you are? Sorry, just.
Hi, I'm Aoife. I'm a student animator at the minute. I'm studying in Ballyfermot. What advice would you give someone who wants to start their own animation company?
I'd say just be patient and be persistent and don't give up and just love what you do and yeah, just keep at it.
Yeah, definitely do it. It's all the rage now. Everyone's setting up an animation company.
Is there anything you would advise on, like anything that would be important?
I guess one of the things that held us back at the start was not having good financial advice in the business at the start. So get yourself a good lawyer, and get yourself a good accountant, and listen to them, trust them, and work with them. Because when you're running a company, it's very different to producing animation. So you need to spend more than you can afford on getting good legal advice and good financial advice, because that's the bit, like, the two of us are disasters when it comes to maths, you know. So so just get people that are better than you to do all that side of the stuff.
It's an interesting thing to say, because I suppose one of the things that has struck me also about watching the development of Brown Bag within that is that there is an expectation that you're able to do everything. And considering that you both started out in college and college didn't work out, certainly didn't work out for you. Did you finish?
You know, I got kicked out for just knowing him.
Why didn't college work out for you?
You know what, like, to be fair, we didn't follow the curriculum. We were doing our own thing.
Yeah.
We were making our own films, we were doing our own, so, you know, it's the best thing that could have happened to us, really.
Yeah.
No, so it's, but what I would say though is it's very important to surround yourself by people that are better than you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's like, what do they say, like, you know, A people hire A people, but B people hire C people, because they're afraid of being replaced. I think you always have to look at being replaced, because that means you can hand off more stuff, you can just make better work.
So you enjoy being challenged? rather than
Absolutely, yeah.
enjoy having people saying, yes, you're wonderful, you're wonderful, you're wonderful.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
People
no, that's
can
an
blow
important-
smoke up your arse the whole time. It does you no favors, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like, but surround like Gillian Higgins when she joined us, that was a big jump for us because she was a professional producer from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
She's an Irish woman, but she did all her training in LA, and
Yeah.
suddenly we were able to do bigger shows with Nickelodeon and Disney, where it's all about like union fees and contracts and all that kind of stuff. And then Louise Cornally, who's our head of
Yeah.
business and finance, she's a ninja at all that stuff.
And this was stuff you didn't know about.
well, we knew about it.
No, but it wasn't in the detail.
Yeah, like we just look. They were trained at that. They were brilliant at it.
And you did a Stanford program through Enterprise Ireland.
Yeah.
And so did that make you aware? I mean, just coming back to Aoife's point there about, asking about setting up a company, because I do think it's very important, that thing of knowing what you know, but also knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you learn in
Well, I mean,
so you've taken a different
I
route?
suppose there is a difference, the craft of animation, and we can all get caught up with the content,
Yeah.
Running the business is entirely different, and
Yeah.
that's where you're, it's all about, can you afford to pay the salaries at the end of the month and all of that really important
Yeah.
stuff in the early days. But yeah, I think, I wouldn't, the difference between running a business and producing and making animation are like chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
And it's almost like commoditized now, you know what I mean? Like we've 8 lines of production now, and you just assume that they're all going well, but like every production needs care and attention, and it's like it's a huge team on each show, but when you're doing that many productions, it's hard to, manage the business as well, and that's
Yeah.
all the infrastructure and the IT and the HR and all that to support it.
And as you were moving in that direction, I mean, I think it does come back to it again, because there's an expectation that like an animator can be somebody who draws and understands how to make beautiful stories. But setting up a company does involve VAT returns,
Oh,
and
yeah,
involves
yeah.
taxes,
Yeah.
and it involves, like, as you say, HR once you take on somebody, and it involves welfare, and it involves
And-
sick leave.
but we-
This stuff.
And we pretty much made every single mistake going, And
Yeah.
like there was a time years ago when we realised we hadn't been paying back for 10 months or something. And we were like, what? And just because we had an accountant who wasn't good enough, and
Yeah.
stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
And it is scary. But I think we're very lucky early on as well that we decided what we wanted to do, and we were both okay with it. So I was able to focus on the creative side, and Colin was able to focus on the business side.
Yeah.
And we were both happy doing that.
Yeah.
And I think that was important. And it was kind of lucky that,
And that was in the mid-2000s, was it, when you
No,
started?
it was really earlier.
Was it, when you
Yeah.
started? Yeah.
But going back to, we mentioned training though, I do think that's the one thing that everybody should do in their business, is commit to doing at least one training course a year. I think, and do something that's beyond your comfort zone, do something that challenges you, like go out to the IMI and do something in strategy and just take yourself out of comfort, even if it's a small business, but
Yeah.
because any investment in training really reaps rewards,
It challenges your thinking and.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that's been something that I've really tried to commit to, and
Yeah.
we have a percentage of payroll that goes towards training, so
Yeah.
we do have a big commitment. We have a head of learning and development in the company now, so it's really important kind of part of the business that everybody gets trained, and it's never enough either. You know what I mean? It's like the more you do, the more the expectations rise, so you're always kind of behind, but just on a broader level.
Yeah,
commitment to
I'm doing a
training.
training course next week, and creative management or whatever. So it's like,
Yeah.
it is good to keep doing it.
Aoife, is that your, any other,
That's
that's kind of,
the only one I can think of right now.
Yeah.
So many questions.
but it kind of gives you a
We're
starting
around.
point.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Of the two of you, when you look back at all the stuff you've made now, which of you is the guy that watches it, and every time you watch it you think, oh God, could have done that better?
Oh,
Which of
yeah,
you is the
yeah.
one that's never happy with what you've done, that, it could always be better?
Oh yeah, no, I think we probably both are. But even Pixar say that they never finish a film, they just release it. Like you'll be tinkering forever. And we used to have a sign on our line tester, just had a big thumbs up, and it said, "It'll do." Because animators will always want to change stuff and tweak stuff. And yeah, you look back on that, and I cringe.
Yeah,
all
I'm
the time.
cringing looking at the Ding Dong Danny. I'm like, oh Jesus.
But but I think that's normal as well, because that's why you want to do the next thing better. But it's hard. You always have to look forward and not back. I think fix it in the next shot. Don't do a George Lucas on it. keep tweaking Star Wars, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Don't look back. You don't. I mean, because this is quite a this is quite a look back at.
Yeah.
Questions? Yep.
I'm Owen, I'm a transition student. Over your whole career together, have you ever had a falling out or disagreement?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's part of being married, you know. It's like, I don't know, it's always been healthy though. Like, I mean, like if you didn't, you know what I mean, it'd be boring and you wouldn't be challenging one another and a whole lot. Like,
Can I just say a story here?
oh shit. This Dara's wife, by the way. His real wife.
Because I can intrude on that relationship. And I remember once they had a horrible fallout. Like, horrible. It was...
Just before you tell the story, Colin might not be aware that we had a fallout. Just so before you say whatever you're about to say.
No, I remember very well that it went a bit too far. It went further than it should have. And I think they were both under pressure. It was leading up to the year where Dara got sick. He was very, very under pressure. And I remember I got in touch with Cahill because I felt that it was just stress and pressure. It was in the year that they were selling, everything was in chaos. And I remember one thing, and I'll never forget, and that's the beauty of Dara and Cahill, is that Cahill tells me there are two people I trust in this world with my money. Dara and another person that he named. But there's only one person I trust with my life, and it's Dara. Oh. And that was the most beautiful thing. And then I said, well, they're tearing each other apart.
Yeah, that's lovely. It's a great story. I mean, I think it is a testament to both of you. Like to have built, to have ended up still sitting beside one of them, being still mates and talking. I know that when I went to meet you for lunch and I watched the two of you, I was standing and the two of you are walking along the Liffey, chatting away. And I just thought that's really, like after all of those years, and I think it's important in friendship. I mean, coming back to, I think, like friendship and collaboration is really important, isn't it? To step over. You have Raz. It's important you have Raz. It's important you're honest with one another.
Oh, yeah.
It's important you have disagreements.
Yeah.
But trust is a very, very important part of that as well, because you're not allowed to hurt one another. It's just, do you think, like...
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
Once there's complete trust, you can say whatever you like, but, yeah. Is that... Have you got no? And there's somebody else over here who's going to... Yeah.
Yeah, hello, I'm Shannon Boyle, I'm a transition here. How would you suggest, would you give any advice for getting noticed and being picked up by any studios or working on any massive projects?
I think the way, I don't think it's about getting noticed once. You have to keep knocking on doors. And when people see you coming back again and again and again, they'll go, oh, okay, he's serious. And that's even what happened with us, getting shows made. There's these big markets out there, like in Cannes and places like that. And you go there the first time, and Cahill was the one who used to go, and it's like this giant anthill of thousands of people running around, and you don't know how it works, and people don't know who you are, and you try to talk to them, and then everyone's too busy. But after you're coming back 2 and 3 years, they go, oh, these guys are still around, they must be serious. I better check, who are you again? And then they start talking to you. So I think it is about persistence, and keep knocking on doors. And don't think it's going to happen in a flash, or it's going to happen straight away. But if you keep at it, it'll happen.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you've talked about going to Cannes the first time, when you went to meet the first time, not having a clue how it worked. Do you know what Cannes? Do you know the Cannes? Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the difference now. I mean, the animation sector now there's a huge community there. There's a lot of people that will tell you what to do, and here's how you navigate markets, and here's what you do. But back then, there was nothing. So we were kind of pioneers. And I remember going out, it was 97, I went to Cannes for the first time, because that's what everybody seemed to do. And I didn't have a clue. And it's when you get down there, it's so structured. Every meeting is on the half hour, and you have to meet about a purpose, and you're in it. Boom, boom, boom. I didn't know what to do. I was rocking up, strolling up to the BBC and say, hey, have you any animation work for me? you again? And it was like, it was really intimidating, and I just thought to myself, oh my God, I just had no idea. Because I didn't know anybody, I just literally was just going around and
Yeah.
walking getting blisters with a big, huge, heavy laptop bag and a broke my shoulder practically, like walking.
Sorry, can I tell the story? We were talking to Alexi from Nickelodeon last night, and he
Oh,
remembered, he remembers the first time he met Cathal. He was there with his boss, and we were walking down the crosshead in Cannes, and he said he saw this guy lying on the bench like this, like with a hangover, and Alexi's boss said, "Oh, have you met Cathal? You must have met Cathal." It was him, hung over on a bench in Cannes.
It was 1997. I'm just saying, it was a long time ago. I sharpened my...
But even first impressions are important. Took 10 years after that before Nickelodeon worked with us.
And so gradually, so basically over the following couple of years, people told you how it worked. And
I just went back again. It was
Yeah.
really uncomfortable. Like I just knew that I had to figure
you
it
found a
out.
hotel instead of a bench.
Yeah. Well, it's like there was no work in Ireland.
Yeah.
I mean, there's zero work coming from RT. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way you could build a business
Yeah.
in Ireland. So you had to be Irish by geography rather than being an Irish animation company. So the only way we could get work was outside. And the film boards, lip service to animation, maximum of 8% of their budget goes on animation for the whole sector. So there was never any opportunities really for us to grow a business in Ireland. So we just knew that the only way to get paid at the end of the month was to get your passport out and hop on an airplane, and that was the start.
Yeah.
So we were really export focused from the start.
Yeah, yeah. Dogged also is, I think, another word for determined.
Yeah.
To achieve the things that you wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
To, as you say, get work and to make animation and to pay salaries
And
and
there was always that fear,
Yeah.
because where's your next job coming from?
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get the job in, it's so hard to manage it, but then you've got to be thinking of the next job. So, and the busier you get then, the bigger your overhead becomes, and the bigger your overhead, the more work you need. It's like this Ponzi scheme, and you're just, your overhead is huge, and you've got to get so many jobs in. So there was always that fear, that underlying kind of, where's the next job coming from?
Any more questions immediately? How are we for time? We have another film to watch, An Ode to Love. Will we watch it and then wrap up? Is that, are people okay for time? Yeah? Yeah, okay, well we...
Play out of tune for a bit. And it's really hard to make that sound like it's on purpose.
Yeah, it's a lovely film. There are just a couple of things. One of them is in terms of funding. There are just a couple of final areas, and if anybody's questions, it's also a chance to get in. In terms of funding for animation, I mean, you articulated at the beginning that animation is a crossover between creative and business, and it's something that, when I was working in North, I was really conscious of, how should you be getting funding from the Department of Trade Industry or whatever they're called nowadays, or should it be the Department of Arts, or should it be, from the broadcaster or communications or whatever. And animation has fallen between all of these. I mean, there are funds that are made available, but it always seems to me that the actual, at its core, the animation sector has punched far beyond the amount of funding, of state funding that has been given to it. And I'm not trying to blame any individual. I'm just curious about, in terms of that, I mean, do you think that more could be done for the sector?
Yeah, I totally believe so. I think there's very old school thinking among many of the agencies, and I don't think they realise the potential, or I don't think they realise the success of the sector. I think animation, it's really is the smart economy. It's export focused. It's talent based. It's a competitive advantage. I think. The creative economy is a major part of our GDP, and during our whole recession, animation studios continued to rise, and so we were largely unaffected by the recession because we were totally export based. So I think there's so much about animation that if it got a small bit more funding, it does return on multiples. But I think you're going to have to go back to some of those state agencies and sort of bring them up to date with,
I think one of the things, I think the animation sector's never felt, that it had a right to funding. And I think we always went out and did our own thing anyway, which is probably why we've been doing it for so long without that, probably people think, oh, well, they're getting on with it anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe sometimes but I prefer to be doing that. I don't think anybody has a right to a living, to be able to get paid to create this stuff. So I think you have to, it's something you have to do anyway.
If you get too much funding, you end up, I mean, some territories like Canada used to be like that, France is like that now, and you can fully fund a program within your own country, and that, you know, it doesn't really challenge the work, because the work stays very local based and it doesn't export. And it also creates a culture of grant-entrepreneurs, you know, people chasing a grant rather than entrepreneurs who are, you know, going off scrambling around trying to, you know, think differently and how they're going to get funding. I think the market has changed so much. It used to be a time you would development, production, and then distribution, whereas now it's development and distribution at the start. So you sell all your rights as you're developing, and then you go into production. So it's so the whole market has changed, and it's like, I kind of said it the other day, that it feels like we're living in the Renaissance. You know, it's like going around and, you know, you've got Michelangelo and Leonardo, what a time to be alive back in Florence and all that. But now in the content sector, it really is slap bang in the middle of the Renaissance, and in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, we'll all be looking back at, you remember 2018 and how it all kind of changed.
I mean, I think that one of the things that is very hard in terms of funding is that like there are two very different ways of thinking, is creative and business. They are very different. And you see it with artists, with visual artists, who are expected to run a business, or potters, or, you know, craftspeople, who are expected to both run a business while also making that. And in a way, I think that, you know, the pair of you having found one another and identified your roles has actually, that's a very good partnership. You know, I mean, I think that the evidence is there.
Yeah, but I would say, like, I think you can be creative and you can still be commercial.
Yeah.
And, you know, for us, we're always aware of our audience.
Yeah.
And we want to entertain, and we want people to, you know, respond to what we do.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like we're trying to be popular, it's just, but we do recognize that this stuff is expensive to make. We can't really just make it for ourselves, otherwise we should just be in a caravan painting pictures somewhere. You know, which Colin still wants to do. But, you know, and I think that's, so I think it is important to find an audience first as well.
It's the thing we always say, like, don't make programs for the BBC or don't make programs for RT. Make programs for a 6-year-old girl or a 4-year-old boy, or, you know, just know your audience. And if you know who your audience is and you're making something that's special for that audience, you will always find a way of funding it. I mean, if you're clever about it. But an awful lot of people, you know, I'm sure people would go and they say, oh, I have a show and it'll work because I'll bring it to Sheila or Pauline or whoever. And it's like, no, it's like, know your audience. And as long as you're making shows for kids, not for, you know, the commissioning editor, that's I think that's
the key thing.
Key mindset.
And that is what has driven you all the way through. I mean, it's very clear that, like, you know what you're doing, who your audience is. It's funny because we haven't seen any of the, you know, your kids' productions here, and that those are the kind of, like, you have those two totally different strands, you know, huge series that are so, you know, popular all over the world, and then one-offs. You know, it's a really good balance of stuff, isn't it? It's really good to be able to continue to make sure it's, you know, on the one hand, and Angela's Christmas, which was screened earlier, and then to have these huge series, which is a totally different way of thinking and production and licensing and everything as well. I mean, it is extraordinary that you have managed to do this over 24 years. If you were to look forward now, or are you looking, you know, the next 3 years, what would you hope for Grandpa Films and for yourselves?
It definitely feels that the best is yet to come. I think with the whole 9-story integration behind us now, we've got a really well-resourced company with an amazing team, and I think it's just more of the same, except the ownership on the projects. You know, we'd like to see more of that on our balance sheet. Like, it's wonderful doing shows for Disney, like service work, when you're doing Vampirina or you're doing Octonauts. It's great. Very often we don't own some of those. We don't have any back end, all that Doc McStuffins toys, you know, we don't get any back end in these,
Yeah.
but it would be fantastic to have a piece of that. Like Doc
Yeah.
McStuffins has sold $2 billion of toys at retail.
Yeah.
You know, so if you get the right show and you own a piece of that participation, like, I mean, that's the end game. So that's, I don't really want to reinvent the wheel other than where we fit in the food chain. You know?
To own more, to develop
Yeah.
more of your own projects.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think, look, I still love making cartoons. And we came to it, when we sold the company, we didn't have to stay around, and people were like, why are you still doing it? Why? But I do love it, you know, and it's, you know, and I think I'd like to continue making shows, but, and there is some very exciting things happening at the moment that, you know, that's one of the, you can't talk about certain things, but I think the standard of the shows we do is going to keep going up, and as Colin said, the thing is changing all the time. You have people like Apple coming into the content market, Facebook, people like that. And they're, you know, it's so weird because on one hand, the traditional means of watching TV is dying out, but there's much more exciting things happening. So, yeah, I think the standard of some of the stuff we do is going to go through the roof.
yeah. And yes, if you look back at the last Elk, I mean, that was 20 years ago. And it stands up as beautiful. No, which is quite, so it seems you've always set the bar very high, that's all in terms of standard, you know, the bar has been set very high. We have about 3 minutes left, so 3 people ask questions and they're getting, you will get one of these each. Here you go. Here you go. Yes. Okay, so there are 3 more. Any fast questions? For come on.
Yeah, just looking back at, I know, I don't want any more, don't give me any more. Over all of the shows and projects and shorts that you've made, what has been your favourite to work on?
Pick a favourite child. It's like it's very hard to, I mean.
So, okay, in another way, think, what has been the most you put into, like which show you put the most thought and love and creative passion into?
Well, I'd say equally all the shows get that. I mean, I can say my personal favourite was probably Octonauts, just because it's the last show I got to direct. I don't really get to direct stuff anymore because we're just doing so much stuff. I work with directors now. I work like with Norton and Dan and people like that, and just make sure that they're able to do the shows they want to do. But I'd love to be able to just go back to just being able to focus on one show. I mean, across Manchester, Toronto, and Dublin now, we're in production with 20 shows. So it's a lot. And it's I'm not involved in all 20 of them. I might be involved in like 8 of them. But it's, yeah, so the idea of just being able to focus all your, and I love that show anyway. I just love the characters, I love the team. It's great working with the actors. It's, but yeah, that for me would be Optimus. So I do have a favourite child.
I'd probably go for Give Up Your Own Sins at a push, because that was never meant to go outside of Dublin, like, because we didn't think anybody, even when we brought it down to the Galway Fla, we thought people wouldn't understand what it was. And for that to, we thought it was going to just be a showreel piece that we would try and get some TV advertising work on the back of it. So it was never done for anything other than just the love of the soundtrack. And I don't think we ever had any great aspirations for it, and it wasn't until it started picking up awards at festivals that we started saying, oh geez, actually I think people like this. And so that was like one of those kind of fluky things that kind of came in, and then we did a TV series afterwards, and sold 100,000 DVDs that Christmas with it. So it's something I guess we're probably pretty proud of, and it still stands up today, I think. So.
Okay, any comment? Anybody want to make a comment for one of these beauties? Come on.
I don't need it all.
You do. You have to.
As a mother of a transition student, obviously you would say, would you say college is very important? Is it graduates that get hired?
Oh yeah, college is important. I mean, but like I think what's great, when we both came out of school, the idea, like we were told we were throwing our life away going into animation school. And I was like, what are you doing? Like I remember like people just genuinely worried for you. But now it is a career. It's a fantastic career. And for all mammies, don't be worried, they're well paid as well. You know, so it's and I'm super proud of that we've actually helped create what's a real job now. And it is, and it's a very enjoyable, fulfilling job. You get to create stuff every day, and you know, and there's a great community, a great bunch of people. So yeah, I would say do go to college, but you know, I think it's a great choice.
Okay, I'll ask you, any comments? Yeah?
I just was wondering, in terms of, do you have any strategies for leveling up professionally and taking confidence to take the next step, like that, to say, like, I can do it, I can approach the bigger person to where you're at in the moment?
It was always just out of necessity. I mean, it was, you know, when you look at your bank balance, there's nothing in it. I better go and get a job. And then you're off to London or you're off wherever, and you just have to pitch, you know. So it was always out of necessity. It was always that kind of entrepreneurial fear. And I think anybody who knows what that is like, it is quite a driving passion inside that you just have to get the job in, and you don't care about making a fool of yourself, going up to somebody and doing a bad pitch. You just got to get the job done. And so yeah, it was always that.
And I think there's also, if the bad pitch, just go and do the next one.
Yeah.
You know, they just like swallow it and get on with it.
Yeah.
You know, even when your friend's sleeping on a bench, you know.
No, he wasn't sleeping. He was just very hungover.
There you go. And for the final one, comment. You could say something nice. Yes.
I don't have any of these.
Norton has directed Doc McStuff for season 1.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, Disney don't give us any free stuff.
Seriously, I saw Angela's Christmas this morning before this group, but so amazing, and you guys funded that and got that made internally, and it seemed like a big step forward, almost towards feature and stuff. Has it changed your mindset as to where you're going with the company to do it?
You want to do a feature film, Norton?
I do.
By the way, Norton directed the Rugrats feature film, by the way, so he's been there before. No, I would like to do that standard thing, yeah. And I mean, again, it just shows, like, Angela's Christmas started as a conversation on a bus journey from Geneva to Annecy to the film festival. I met a woman from New York who had the rights to it, and she pitched me the idea, and that's how this stuff, and then it was like 5 years later it's made. But that's just the random nature of this business. So you never know where the next job is going to come from.
But I think that's Angela's Christmas speaks to the positive experience of joining forces with Nice Story and their distribution and the private equity behind it. Because we could not have funded that in Ireland by a long stretch. We got some money from the film board, we got some money from RTE, but it was tiny. We were talking single digits in total of the overall production budget. So we had to put our hands in our own distribution pocket and at risk fund that in the hope that we're going to sell it commercially afterwards. So we own 100% of the rights in that, and that is it is going to happen. We have a lot of interest around the world, so it's an example of kind of betting on yourself. And I think it's.
But it was scary. I don't know if they'll do it again in a hurry, you know.
No, but it's going to be a commercial success as well, and that's a great example of kind of, you know, being able to use somebody else's kind of resources to kind of drive your business forward and own the IP.
Yeah.
So.
I think we'll wrap it there. But I just want to say the fact that both of you are still so engaged by what you do is fantastic. I think, you know, it would be very easy, as you say, to have walked away in 2015 and said, okay, I'm going to play golf or something, something like that. I don't know what you do, but you know, that kind of thing.
Lena won't let me play golf. I'm a member of a golf club.
No, I hate
and I've never
four-letter words. No, please. That's why I kind of said it.
She sees my own father and she's like, you're not turning into that.
But you know, the work that you have done is tremendous, and it's been really interesting looking back at that. There's so much else that wasn't, you know, that wasn't shown. Those are some of the clips, and I'm glad it includes Ding Dong Denny to make you go, ugh, because we all have those moments, you know, when you do something, you look back and you go, did I actually, you know, whatever. The work that you have done is tremendous, and the work that you have done, what you have brought in terms of the industry, having watched it develop, and I really, you know, I have to say personally I admire both of you, but I also admire the fact that your friendship has remained intact. I mean, to have a partnership that works in this kind of way and that actually brings so much greater good, you know, to a whole community is a very, very remarkable thing, and something to be absolutely you know, treasured and honoured. And so with that, I'm going to stand up.